No refrigerator, no electricity, just frost, silence, and a whole lot of frozen meat. In Yakutia, one of the coldest inhabited regions on Earth, winter isn't just a season, it's a tool. While most of the world relies on humming refrigerators and buzzing freezers, the Yakuts do something very different. They let the Siberian cold do the work. Imagine stepping outside to grab dinner. Not from the kitchen, but from a block of ice buried in the ground, or hanging from a wooden frame in your backyard. In a land where temperatures drop to minus 60 degrees Celsius, freezing food isn't a chore. It happens in minutes. No power outages, no spoiled meat, just nature's deep freeze, perfected over generations. In this video, we're diving into the frozen cellars, hanging slabs of meat, and snow-packed storage tricks that allow Yakut families to thrive where frostbite is a daily risk, and thawing is the real enemy. In most homes, when the power goes out, panic sets in. The fridge stops humming, and the countdown to spoiled food begins. But in Yakutia, there's no rush. The whole world outside is colder than your freezer. Nestled deep in the Siberian wilderness, Yakutia isn't just cold. It's brutally, consistently cold. Winter temperatures often sit between minus 40 and minus 60 degrees Celsius, and even springtime can feel like an ice bath. That means modern refrigerators, where available, are more of a convenience than a necessity. For many families, especially in remote villages, they're simply not needed at all. Electricity here isn't always guaranteed. Many homes rely on firewood, coal, or diesel generators for heat and light. Especially in isolated settlements, refrigerators, if they exist, are often small and reserved for summer use, when the real challenge begins. But in winter, all you need is a hook, a rope, and a strong nail outside your kitchen window. It's common to see slabs of frozen meat hanging from wooden posts or wrapped in cloth and left in crates outdoors. Forget plastic containers or fancy packaging. Meat here freezes solid in less than an hour. And once it's frozen, it stays that way for months. No insulation required. Even vegetables, carrots, potatoes, cabbages, are stored outside in wooden crates packed with snow or straw. Fish are often lined up in rows like icy bricks. Some families use covered porches as makeshift walk-in freezers, with thick curtains or wooden barriers to keep animals away. Others repurpose old sheds or wooden boxes insulated with layers of snow and sawdust. There's something both eerie and fascinating about it. You could be walking through a sleepy Yakut village and pass what looks like a wooden coffin buried in snow, only to realize it's a winter freezer packed with frozen moose or horse meat. Entire herds can be processed, divided, and stored in pieces, each family taking their share, freezing it outdoors as naturally as we might store it in a chest freezer. But while it may seem primitive, it's incredibly effective. The Yakuts aren't just improvising, they're following traditions passed down for centuries, methods refined by generations who understood that when you live on permafrost, the land itself can preserve your food. No power, no problem. The freezer is the sky, the thermostat, the Arctic wind, and somehow, it all works beautifully. Love stories of ancient survival with a frosty twist? Tap that red subscribe button. It's free, quick, and helps bring Arctic knowledge to screens around the world. Now, let's get back to our video. Welcome to the lednik, the traditional Yakut ice cellar. It's a marvel of low-tech engineering, using permafrost, darkness, and silence to preserve food year-round. In a region where the top layer of soil stays frozen for most of the year, the Yakuts don't fight the cold. They dig into it. These cellars are usually about 2 to 3 meters deep, but in some cases even deeper. Families dig them by hand or with the help of neighbors, carving a square or circular pit directly into the permafrost. The walls are often lined with wooden planks to prevent collapse and to block surface moisture from seeping in. At the bottom, A thick wooden platform or compacted earth base keeps food off the frost-covered floor, and once you step inside, it's like entering a time capsule. Even in July, when surface temperatures can briefly reach 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, the lednik stays frozen. That's because it's naturally insulated by layers of earth, snow, and often a heavy lid made of wood, metal, or animal hides. Some are buried under snow for added insulation. Others are accessed by lifting a small trapdoor just outside the home or barn. Inside, the air is dense and cold, the silence is total. Your breath fogs instantly and the walls may glisten faintly with frost. Meat, fish, fat, berries, and even blocks of ice are stored here. Each item has its place, organized by use, season, or even scent to prevent cross-contamination. A full lednik might contain slabs of frozen horse meat or reindeer legs wrapped in canvas, ice bricks harvested from nearby rivers during winter, containers of frozen berries collected in summer, animal fat or bone marrow sealed in birch bark containers, dried fish frozen solid and stacked like lumber. The Yakuts don't store food in plastic or metal. They use natural materials like wood, bark, and cloth, which breathe and insulate without sealing in moisture. And because the cold is constant, there's no need for artificial cooling, no risk of mechanical failure. As long as the earth stays frozen, and in Yakutia it will for a long time, the food remains preserved. The real magic is how long it lasts. Meat stored in a well-maintained lednik can stay edible for more than a year without any chemical preservatives. Even the texture and taste remain surprisingly intact. Just add heat and seasoning, and dinner is ready. Descending into an ice cellar feels like stepping into another world, quiet, frigid, and humbling. The air is so cold it bites your skin. The walls hum with ancient stillness. Yet inside, there's comfort, security, a survival system honed over centuries and untouched by the noise of modern life. In Yakutia, the freezer isn't a machine, it's a chamber carved into the frozen soul of the earth itself, and it works, flawlessly. In a place where meat freezes faster outdoors than in a commercial freezer, the Yakuts have developed a preservation method that's both incredibly efficient and deeply rooted in tradition. Meat here isn't stored. It's frozen solid by the air itself, often minutes after butchering. After a successful hunt or a livestock slaughter, Yakut families act quickly. Large cuts of meat, horse, reindeer, cow, or moose, are cleaned and processed outdoors, sometimes even in the snow. There's no need for ice baths or refrigeration. The ambient temperature, often around -40 to -50 degrees Celsius, naturally flash freezes the meat. Within an hour, it becomes rock hard. Once frozen, the meat is hung from wooden beams, stored in open sheds or stacked on raised platforms to keep it away from dogs and wild animals. Some families wrap the cuts in fabric or birch bark, while others leave them exposed. Frost acts as a natural barrier against spoilage. Fish, especially species like lednik and omul, are gutted, cleaned, and left outside on drying racks or laid flat in freezing air. These fish will dry and freeze simultaneously, a process that essentially freeze-dries them. The outer layers harden into a protective shell, while the inside remains rich with flavor and nutrients. These frozen fish can later be eaten raw, shaved into thin slices for traditional dishes like stroganina. Blood sausages, internal organs, and fatty cuts are also preserved. Fat is especially prized, not just for calories, but for its ability to fuel the body in extreme cold. It's stored in sealed containers and frozen like everything else. Bone marrow and connective tissue are saved for soups and stews, frozen into blocks that can be chipped down as needed. Meat preservation in Yakutia isn't just practical, it's strategic. Families often process entire animals at once, preparing enough food to last for months. Cuts are divided, some for daily meals, others for special occasions, and some for emergencies. and nothing is wasted. Even tendons and hooves may be frozen and stored for traditional recipes or animal feed. Interestingly, thawing the meat isn't always part of the cooking process. Many Yakuts shave or chip off thin slices with a sharp knife while the meat is still frozen, especially when preparing dishes meant to be eaten raw or lightly seared. In many households, it's common to serve guests raw frozen fish slices dipped in salt or vinegar, refreshing, flavorful, and surprisingly tender despite the sub-zero prep. This system isn't dependent on electricity, packaging, or preservatives. It's a clean, simple cycle: cold air, smart storage, and cultural know-how. While the rest of the world worries about power outages spoiling the week's groceries, Yakuts rest easy. Their freezer is the world outside, and it's always on. Winter in Yakutia is a natural blessing when it comes to food storage. But what happens when the snow melts, the rivers flow again, and the temperature dares to climb above freezing? For a few short months, usually from late May to August, Yakutia enters what the locals call the warm time. And while it's brief, it presents a unique challenge. How do you preserve meat when the outside world is no longer a freezer? Yakut families have adapted with incredible precision. The answer lies in a combination of deep ice cellars, traditional preservation techniques, and generational timing of when to harvest, store, or consume food. First, let's talk about the ice itself. During winter, many families carve huge blocks of ice from frozen rivers and lakes. These blocks are stored either outside, covered in thick layers of sawdust and snow, or packed into ice cellars to last through the summer. When carefully insulated, this ice can stay solid for months, acting as a natural cooling agent. In many villages, the ice cellar becomes the main food vault during the warmer months. Unlike shallow pits or exposed sheds, these cellars are dug deep, sometimes more than 3 meters, and sealed tightly. Some even use 2 compartments, one accessed in winter, the other kept closed and insulated until summer. Families rotate their use, ensuring one side stays cold as long as possible. Inside, food is often stored alongside ice blocks, wrapped in cloth or bark to prevent sweating and spoilage. But when even that's not enough, Yakuts turn to timeless preservation techniques that predate refrigeration by centuries. Salting is a major method. Meat and fish are generously rubbed with salt and packed into wooden barrels or clay pots. The salt draws out moisture and inhibits bacterial growth. Once cured, the food can last for weeks or months without refrigeration. Salted fish, especially whitefish, perch, and grayling, is a staple in summer meals. Drying is another critical tool. On sunny days, Yakuts build makeshift drying racks outside their homes. Meat is sliced into thin strips and hung over open-air frames, often covered by cheesecloth or netting to keep flies away. The dry air, even in summer, pulls moisture out gradually. Once fully dried, the meat becomes tough, lightweight, and nearly immune to decay. It's stored in sacks or wooden boxes and can be rehydrated later in soups and stews. Then there's fermentation. In some regions, fermented milk products, like kaimis made from mare's milk, are produced in summer. These are stored in sealed wooden barrels or leather sacks and consumed within days or weeks. While not used for long-term storage, they're part of the seasonal rotation of nutrition that fills the gap when meat isn't as easily preserved. Timing is everything. Many Yakut families schedule slaughters during the coldest times of year, typically November through February, so that meat can be frozen naturally and stored safely through spring. By the time summer arrives, much of that meat has already been used. Whatever remains is either moved into deep cellars or preserved by drying and salting. It's not a single method. It's a system. A year-round rotation of freezing, curing, drying, and timing ensures there's always something to eat. Even more impressive? This system rarely fails. There are no backup generators or freezers to rely on. Just skill, tradition, and a deep understanding of how to work with the land instead of against it. So while modern cities scramble when a refrigerator breaks down, the Yakuts calmly adjust. Their way of life has been built for centuries to handle the heat. even in a place where warmth is temporary and unpredictable. In Yakutia, storing food isn't just a chore, it's a ritual, a tradition passed down like language or music. It's not unusual to see 3 generations of a family working together to pack a winter's worth of meat, carefully arranging slabs and bones in just the right way inside a snow-covered cellar. There are no instruction manuals. The knowledge is lived, learned by watching elders, by practicing in silence, and by making the same careful movements your ancestors made centuries ago. Each family has its own rhythm, its own techniques, its own secrets. One family may prefer stacking meat vertically and separating layers with dry birch branches to allow airflow. Another might dust the top layer with wood ash to deter pests and moisture. Some wrap dried fish in wool cloth and hang them from the ceiling rafters of storage barns, while others bury tightly wrapped cuts in pits under piles of sawdust. These differences might seem small, but they matter, especially in a place where one cracked seal, one overlooked hole in a wrapping, can mean losing a whole season's supply of food. Children are involved from a young age. In many villages, helping with food storage is a key part of growing up. Little ones learn how to carry wood, sweep out the cellar, and eventually how to recognize good meat from spoiled. By the time they're teenagers, they know exactly how to chip frozen meat from the cellar walls, how to tie ropes the right way to hang game, and how to select the best place for drying fish so that it catches just enough sun but not too much wind. It's not just about practicality, it's about pride. Families take pride in their ability to prepare, preserve, and sustain. Food is more than nourishment here, it's survival security. A well-stocked ice cellar is seen as a sign of wisdom and responsibility. Guests who visit during winter are often shown the family's storage, much like a wine cellar or pantry might be displayed elsewhere. It's a quiet way of saying, we are prepared, we are strong, we will endure. Community matters too. During large butchering events, especially in winter when horses or cattle are slaughtered, neighbors often gather to help. The meat is shared, divided fairly, and stored with cooperation. In extremely remote villages, communal storage pits may even be used, guarded by tradition and mutual respect. Beyond meat, there are traditional dishes that rely on the cold for their creation. Stroganina, for instance, is a delicacy made by slicing frozen raw fish into thin ribbons and serving it immediately, still icy, often with salt and pepper. Preparing stroganina is a precise art, requiring a sharp knife, steady hands, and perfect timing. It's usually made in front of guests, a kind of performance that reflects skill and heritage. All of this points to one thing. Storing food in Yakutia is more than an act of survival. It's a connection to the past, a demonstration of community strength, and an education passed through the hands of generations. In a land where nature can be merciless, these traditions offer control, stability, and peace of mind. When the world outside turns white and the rivers freeze solid, Yakut families rest easier, not because they have electricity or modern technology, but because they have knowledge. Knowledge that fills their cellars, feeds their children, and weaves them tightly into the fabric of one of the world's toughest environments. While most of us depend on refrigerators buzzing in the background or apps that remind us what's expiring in the fridge, the Yakuts live by different rules. Out here, the freezer isn't a box, it's the landscape. The thermometer isn't digital, it's the sting on your skin when you step outside. And yet, they're not just making do. They've mastered a system that's elegant, efficient, and completely independent of electricity. It's a fusion of environmental awareness, cultural tradition, and centuries of trial and error. They don't just store food, they preserve it with care, timing, and respect for nature's coldest extremes. From the depth of the ice cellars to the quiet ritual of shaving frozen fish for stroganina, everything is purposeful. Every action, every layer of meat or fish in a cellar, every slab hanging from a snowy rafter, it all tells a story of resilience. A story where survival isn't frantic, but calm, practiced and wise. So next time you open your fridge, imagine needing nothing but snow, silence, and skill to keep your food fresh for months. In Yakutia, that's not a fantasy. It's just life. Enjoyed this look at Arctic life? Give the video a like, drop a comment about the most extreme place you've ever been, and don't forget to subscribe for more survival stories from Earth's coldest corners. Thanks for watching, and stay curious, stay warm.